Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, let us begin. Hello. Good, good. I'm about to start my Seerah, so can I call back later? No problem. No. Sorry. Okay, apologies for that. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so we're going to be covering two incidents today, which occurred in the 4th year after the migration. So the 2nd year we had Badr, 3rd year we had Uhud, 4th year we have these two incidents, which are called Bir Ma'una and Rajī. So these are the next two major incidents, and in these incidents, unfortunately, large groups of Sahaba, they were killed, they were massacred, and this caused Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sadness and a lot of grief. Now, what exactly happened? What's the background of these two incidents, these two massacres? If I lose sound at any time, just type on the live chat that there is no sound, so that I could make another link. All right. So it appears that the apparent loss of Uhud made some of the Bedouin tribes around Medina greedy. And the Bedouin tribes, how did they live? How did they earn an income? They earned an income by raiding and stealing. So when they heard about Uhud, they thought this to be an opportune moment to go into Medina and just raid them and steal from them. Also, there appears to be religious animosity more so now, where ultimately there will be an all-out war against Islam and against Tawheed. So a number of small skirmishes it took place. Of them, the Muslims, they attacked a small tribe. Now this is the build-up of Bir Ma'una and Rajī. So a number of small skirmishes took place. Of them, the Muslims attacked a small tribe of the Banu Asad, and their leader was Tulayha al-Asadi. And he was one of the 30 Dajjals who proclaimed prophethood after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent 150 people, under 150 Sahaba, and they were victors, and it caused Tulayha to declare himself a prophet. Now, the main two stories are Rajī and Bir Ma'una. They're both wells. Both of these are named after wells. And in these places, this is where the massacres took place. Now, regarding Rajī, the beginnings go back a little bit, and the beginnings are that the tribe of Huzayl, this was a large Bedouin tribe in the north, and they had started planning an attack on Medina again, because they heard that the Muslims, they lost in Uhud, so they thought that the Muslims were weak, and the Bedouins, they earned an income by raiding and stealing from caravans. So their chieftain, his name is Khalid ibn Sufyan Huzayl. Khalid bin Sufyan al-Huzayli. So he began gathering a small army to surprise attack Medina. So the Prophet, hearing this, decided to preemptively attack him and execute him. So he chose a Sahabi by the name of Abdullah ibn Unais al-Juhani, just one man, to get rid of this chieftain. So one man and no army, just one person he selects, no army behind this man. So the Prophet ﷺ tells him that you're going to find him in the valley of Arana. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously told the Prophet ﷺ, informed the Prophet ﷺ that such and such person this is who he is, and this is who you have to kill, and this is where he's going to be located. So Abdullah al-Juhani asked that, what does he look like? He asked the Prophet ﷺ that, I've never seen him. What does he look like? So the Prophet said that when you see him, you will be more terrified than seeing anyone. So he's going to have a very distinct appearance. So Bedouins, they're living a rough life, no hygiene, and they appear crude. Hair is probably disheveled. Just a person living in the desert. And obviously in the desert, scarcity of water, they don't really take care of themselves. So the Prophet ﷺ simply tells him that when you see him, you will be more terrified than seeing anyone. The Prophet ﷺ, of course, had not seen him, but obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him. So Abdullah said, the Sahabi who was chosen and who was selected to kill this man who was going to attack Medina. So he said that he took his sword and he headed towards the valley. So Abdullah said, when I saw him firsthand, I had never been more terrified of anyone's shakal, anyone's appearance than anyone before. I mean, he just looked evil. This man, he looked evil. So I said, and I think everybody has this ability that, when we go out, some people we're comfortable with, we can talk comfortably with, and some people we can't really talk comfortably with, and we feel we feel a kind of dread when we speak to them. I'm sure we've all come across people like that. Wallahu alam. So Abdullah said, I said that Allah and His Messenger, he spoke to himself that Allah and His Messenger, He has spoken the truth. They have spoken the truth. That this is what Rasulullah ﷺ told me, that this man is going to terrify me, and this is how I'm feeling right now. This has to be the person. So we assume it's Dhuhr time. This is what the Seerah Ibn Ishaq mentions. And he says that he saw him in a distance. And because he was worried that the time would go away, he prayed as he was walking and made gestures as he walked. So it was time for Dhuhr, and he felt that, if I carry through with this task, then the time of Dhuhr is going to lapse, and I can't do qada of this. So therefore, he prayed the first time in Islamic history, a type of salah that was later called one version of Salatul Khawf, right? The prayer when one is struck with fear. And this is usually done on the battlefield, right? When you're facing the enemy and you don't have time for prayer. So what happens is that a contingent of the army, they offer the salat, and after they finish, then the second contingent comes and offers salah. Continuing on, this man, he offered salah while walking towards this person. He offered the first version of Salatul Khawf. So if a salat in this kind of circumstance, it would be permissible. Another thing is that the Sahaba, they did exercise ijtihad. They did exercise personal jurisprudence. They would practice, and they would exercise personal deductions from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hadith, from the Quran. And if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam approved that this method is valid, then it would be considered part of the Sharia. So this Abdullah, he got close to Khalid ibn Sufyan, and he asked Khalid, the chieftain, if he was making an army. And then he said that, let me join your army, meaning that it was a ruse. This was all a ruse. And then when the time was right, he got rid of him. Now Khalid, he only had a few people with him, so it was relatively easy for Abdullah to do this. So he went back, and as soon as the Prophet ﷺ saw him, he made dua for him, and he gifted him a staff, that this shall be a sign between me and you on the day of Qiyamah. So Abdullah, it comes in the narrations that Abdullah never ever from that point let the staff out of his sight. And when he died, he was buried with the staff in his grave. So from this we also understand that if there is something that we consider a relic from someone pious, it's permissible. Permissible to use it. It's permissible to revere it. It's permissible to hold on to something like that. Now, a few things about this. The miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to know the right location and physical details of this chieftain by the name of Khalid. Number two, he chose the right person for the job. Another thing is that I mentioned is that the Sahaba, they made ijtihad about fiqh even during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith, this is clear evidence about the legal permissibility of making ijtihad. And there are many places where this happened. Sometimes the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would affirm the ijtihad made, or he would fine tune the ijtihad. There is a narration in Muwatta where Ammar ibn Yasir, he became impure, and this is the desert. There's no water, so he made ijtihad, and his ijtihad was that, well, because there's no water, let me just remove my clothing and just roll around in the dirt, similar to how we put water all over our bodies. So this was the ijtihad that if that tayammum, or the tayammum, the ayah of tayammum was revealed, but there was no explanation of that tayammum is suitable for ghusl. So Ammar bin Yasir, he made ijtihad and he rolled around in the dirt, and thinking that this is what we need to do when there is no water. So when he informed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam laughed, and then he taught him he taught him that tayammum, even in the state of being junub, in the state of being impure, this too is permissible. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed him again the method of tayammum. So this hadith, it tells us the legal permissibility of extrapolating from the Quran and from the Sunnah situations which the Quran and Sunnah don't explicitly tell us, right? And this is something that the Sahaba, they would do and they would practice. So this occurred in Muharram of the 4th year of the Hijrah. So they killed the chieftain. Now, how did they respond? The tribe resorted to a very evil tactic to get revenge. So they contacted 2 other tribes, Udal and Qarra. These were 2 tribes, and paid them some money to set up a blatant, dastardly trap. A very simple plot. They pretended to accept Islam. They go to Medina, and then they begged the Prophet ﷺ to send his best teachers. Right? And because they knew the Sahaba loved to go and teach, this was what the Sahaba would do. Rasulullah said, "Khayrukum man ta'allama al-Quran wa 'allama." That the best amongst you is the one who learns Quran and teaches it. So the Sahaba, they love teaching the Quran. They love teaching Deen. So the Prophet ﷺ would send many Sahaba out. So Udal and Qarra, they did this. And the Prophet ﷺ agreed to send 10 Sahaba under the leadership of Asim ibn Thabit. So when these Sahaba, they got to the well, they reached the well of Ar-Rajī', 100 warriors ambushed them. The Sahaba, they realized it was a trap, a setup. And when they saw the 100 coming in the distance, the Sahaba, they managed to take shelter at the top of a hill. And they pulled out their bows and arrows. Now the plot thickens, because Asim, he had killed in the battle of Uhud the husband of a certain lady by the name of Sulafa bint Sa'ad, pagan. So she had promised that she will drink from the skull of Asim. And she said that, unashiduka, right? Unashidu, that I swear that I won't die until I do this, that I drink from the skull of Asim, using it as a goblet. So in her vengeance, she also said that anyone who brings me the skull of Asim, I will give that person 100 camels. Right? So Asim, he knew this. So he cried out and he made dua to Allah, right? That, "Oh Allah, inform our Prophet about our plight. that we were sincere, we fought till the end, we didn't die as cowards. And he said, as I protected your religion in the daytime, protect my body at night. And he fought with his arrows until they ran out. And he fought with his spears until the spears became dull. And he fought such a battle, but eventually he died. So when Asim died, they all pounced on his body to get the 100 camel reward. 100 camels is a whole bunch of money. And out of nowhere, a swarm of bees come, and they would sting anyone who would come close to the body of Asim. So they consulted, what do we do? Right? This body is worth a lot of money, 100 camels worth. And they waited until sunset. And out of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, a river just comes. Middle of the desert, river comes. No rain. There's no rain, and there's no traces of a river anywhere. So his body was at the top of the hill. River comes gushing through, picked up his body, and carried it away. Now, subhanAllah, no one knows where the body of Asim ibn Thabit is buried. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of his burial. And this is the story of Asim ibn Thabit. Now, back to the battle. They killed 7 out of the 10. They killed 7 out of the 10. So there was 3 left. And they're surrounded by these 100. And the 100 said that, okay, look, surrender now, because they will get ransom and money. You surrender now, and we'll ransom you, and we'll get some money out of it. So they promised that if you surrender, we will protect you and we will give you safety. And the 3 of them surrendered. There was 3 left: Khubayb, Zayd ibn Dathina, and Abdullah ibn Tariq. So immediately when they surrendered, they laid down their arms, they jumped on them like animals, and they tied them up. So Abdullah bin Tariq said, this is a sign of treachery. And at this, he didn't move. And he didn't do anything they wanted. He didn't march, he didn't move. So they killed him right there and then, and left him at the side of the road. Khubayb, he was purchased by the tribe of Banu Harith. Khubayb was purchased by the tribe of Banu Harith. So as he killed someone from this tribe during Badr. And Zayd had been one of those who had attacked none other than Umayyah ibn Khalaf, the master of Bilal. Right? The same Bilal that said, I won't live if he lives. Right? He said, Ma najawtu in naja. Ma najawtu in naja. If Umayyah lives, I'm not going to live. So Zayd was one of those responsible who was thrusting spears under the body of Abdurrahman bin Auf, and he killed Umayyah. So Safwan ibn Umayyah, the son of Umayyah bin Khalaf, the great enemy of Islam, purchased him for a large sum to kill him in retaliation for killing his father. So as for Khubayb, he remained a prisoner amongst the Banu Haris until they announced that they will kill him. So he asked that, let me take a shower, and he asked for a razor to get rid of the hair below the navel. So basically he wants to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clean. So as he was sitting there with the razor in his hand, a baby came to him, and the mother cried out in fear that Khubayb is going to kill her son, kill her child. So Khubayb tells the mother that, are you scared that I'm going to kill this child? Wallahi, I would never do something like this. Right? So this same mother said that, by Allah, he had the best mannerisms I'd ever seen. And I saw him tied up, yet he was eating grapes. And this was not the season of grapes in Makkah. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given this to him. This is provision from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when they brought him forward to be killed, he said that, let me pray 2 rakats. So when he finished, he said, were it not for the fact, right, that you would think that I am being a coward, I would have prayed a longer 2 rakats, but I don't want you to think that I'm scared of that death. Thus, I cut it short. And Khubayb was the one who started the sunnah of praying 2 rakats before execution. Right? So throughout history, we find many examples of Muslim prisoners offering 2 rakats before they were killed. Right? There's many examples in history. Right? So he started this ijtihad that offer 2 rakats before being killed, and that was accepted and approved by the Prophet ﷺ. As for Zayd, he's of course back with the Quraysh, and they really made a big festival out of killing him. So the people of Makkah, they took a day off to torture him and to kill him. Abu Sufyan said when he was tied up that, I ask you by Allah, tell me the absolute honest truth. Don't you wish Muhammad was in your place and you are with your family and children? So Zayd, he gave a very honest response with iman that only a Muslim can have. So he said, Wallahi, by Allah, I would rather die here than a thorn prick the foot of Rasulullah ﷺ where he is sitting now. This was the immense love the Sahaba had for the Prophet ﷺ, that they were willing to lay down everything for the sake of Rasulullah ﷺ. Now Abu Sufyan said that he had never seen a leader more beloved to his people than Muhammad ﷺ and his companions. Every single non-Muslim themselves used to say this about Rasulullah ﷺ, that they never saw companions who loved a leader like the Prophet ﷺ was loved by his companions. Now from this we learn many things. In such situations where we are confronted with insurmountable odds, right? What should we do? Should we surrender or should we fight on? Right? So permissibility has been given for both. That if we're in a position where our lives are at stake, right, and there is an option to surrender, there is an option to fight on. So the scholars say that there is permissibility and there's scope to subscribe to any one of the two opinions. Either a person can surrender or fight. Number two, it's not considered suicide to do something that you know will cause your death, as long as it is being caused by someone else. I mean, these people, the Sahaba, they knew that no matter what happens, they're going to be killed, right? But it wasn't suicide. This is not considered suicide. He did it. The Sahaba didn't do it themselves. So the Sahabi knows that he's going to get tortured and he's going to die. So he thought, let them just do it now, right? Rather than later. Number three, the concept of karama. So karama is a miracle, a mini miracle that is produced at the hands of a regular person, not a prophet. So miracles from the prophets, they are called mu'jiza. The miracles that are produced at the hands of regular people, these are karamat. And this is part of our creed, this is part of our aqidah. Karamatul awliya haqqun. The karamat of awliya, the friends of Allah, they are haqq, they are truth, and this is something that can happen. And this is something that was given to the non-prophets. And these are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses the believers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with. And we see many examples of this in the Seerah. Two of them right now, out of nowhere. Bees come, they settle on the body of Asim, stinging anyone that would come near Asim. And then you have a river that comes out of nowhere, taking the body. We don't know where Asim ibn Thabit is buried. And also Khubayb eating grapes out of season in Makkah, because grapes were grown in Ta'if and they were out of season, and he was eating them out of nowhere. And we have a non-Muslim attesting to this, that he's eating grapes. So this is miracle, this is a karama of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, we see the love of the Sahaba, and how they loved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But even when it came to following the Sunnah up to the time of death, right, they had so much love when it came to following all of the practices of Rasulullah. That he's about to die, but he wants to purify himself, because Rasulullah has mentioned that a mu'min, a believer, should try to stay in the state of purity. He should try to stay in the state of purity. So the Sahaba, death is staring at him in his face, and he's concerned about performing ghusl and removing unwanted hairs from his body so that he can meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a clean state. Another point, treachery and killing innocents is never something our religion allows. Right? This is very important, that treachery and killing innocents, it's never something that our religions allow. Right? Islam does not allow treachery, and it does not allow killing innocent people. Many people would say, let me just kill, since I'm going to die anyway, let me just kill and take many people with me, right? Since I'm going to be executed, let me just take with me as many people as possible. This is completely wrong, and this is against Islam. This is categorically prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Khubayb, he was insulted that the mother thought that he would harm her child. So he consoled the mother and said that, calm down. I would never do something like this. Our Sharia is very explicit about the complete impermissibility of killing innocents. Right? Now, what made these incidents especially traumatic is that the second incident occurred at the exact same time. Right? So much so that the Prophet ﷺ got news of both of them on the same night. So both these incidents, Ar-Rajī and Bir Ma'una, they happened, and the news reached the Prophet ﷺ the same time. Right? So, and it was a tragedy in terms of quantity, much worse, right? The incident of Bir Ma'una, it was a lot worse because the sheer quantity of Sahaba and the quality of the Sahaba that lost their lives. So the story of Bir Ma'una is as follows, that one of the famous chieftains of Najd. What's Najd? Najd is northern Arabia. Najd is northern Arabia. So you have the areas of Medina, Makkah. This is all, that small little swathe of land, right? This is called the Hijaz. The rest of Arabia is called Najd, right? So they were known, the people of Najd, they were known for many things. Of them is that they weren't civilized people as the Hijazis. This was a perception of the time. So Abu al-Bara, Amir ibn Malik, we'll call him Abu al-Bara, he was the chieftain of Najd. So he came to Medina, became very impressed with Islam, and the Prophet ﷺ gave da'wah to him, right? And he was hesitant and said, "Oh Muhammad, if only you were to send a group of companions to come and teach us Islam, we will spread your message, we'll do our job." So Abu al-Bara, he guaranteed protection in the Najd region for those who will proselytize the religion of Islam, right? Those who will spread and disseminate the religion of Islam. And he said that you have my word, that I'm not lying. And he was not lying. So how it worked back then was that if everyone allied with a tribe, if one of the tribes gives protection, all of the joined tribes, they too would have to give protection. So if X and Y are allies, okay, if X and Y are allies and X protects Z, then Y must protect Z as well. So he guaranteed protection from his end. But he didn't realize at the time one of the other allied tribes' chieftain hated Islam so much that he was ready to invoke civil war, as I'm going to discuss right now. So this is big news. The province of Najd is bigger than Hijaz. The province of Najd is way bigger than Hijaz, and there is a number of potential converts. Right? There's a number of people who will, if successful, they will convert to Islam, and this would bring many Muslims into the fold of Islam. So the Prophet ﷺ, he chooses 70 of the best Qurra, preachers, du'at, because the potential is so much, and he chooses the majority from where? Ahlul Sufa, right? Because the Ahlul Sufa, they are the cream of the crop. They are the cream. So Anas bin Malik himself narrates, the personal attendant of the Prophet ﷺ, himself narrates the people who went there, they were known for the Quran, known for tahajjud, filling up the buckets of the Ansar at night and then going back to sleep. This is what they were known for. They would devote their entire lives towards to the Quran and to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They were the best of the best. These were the people of the Sufa. They were involved in charity. They were involved in salah. They were involved in tahajjud. They were the cream of the Sahaba. So the Prophet ﷺ, realizing the potential that the region of Najd held, he asked the Ashab Sufa that you need to go there and you need to spread and deliver the message of Islam. So for the small city of Medina, the Prophet ﷺ chose a huge amount. Why? It's a golden opportunity. And again, potential of converts is so much. And Abu al-Bara, as I said, he was not lying. He gave the Prophet ﷺ his word, and the Prophet of Allah trusted him. So when the 70 of them, when they got to the well of Ma'una, they sent a letter through Haram ibn Milhan. Haram ibn Milhan. He's a Sahabi, right? He's an envoy. He's a messenger from the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ gives a letter to Haram ibn Milhan that this is a letter that you need to deliver to Amir ibn Tufail, the chieftain of one of the local tribes of the region. And Amir ibn Tufail, he was an arrogant chieftain. He was related to Abu al-Bara. He was an arrogant chieftain who wanted to accept Islam on only on two conditions, right? So he said that I will accept Islam either if you take charge of the cities and you leave all of the Bedouin lands to me, or make me your chieftain after you die. So these were his conditions. He laid down these conditions and he said these are the only scenarios that I will accept Islam, right? So first condition was that either you take charge of the cities, right, and you leave the Bedouin lands to me. And he was trying to be reasonable, so he said, or make me your chieftain after you die. Obviously, these conditions they were not met by the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ cannot do anything of his own volition. He is commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So obviously the Prophet ﷺ refused to accept, and this made him even more arrogant. So when Haram ibn Milhan came to Amir, he had a generic letter of information that this is why they're here. They're here to disseminate the message of Islam. And everyone knew the Muslims had protection. But when Amir heard these Sahaba had come from Medina, he made an eye motion to one of his henchmen to kill Haram ibn Milhan. Now this is a triple sin over here, right? Number one, Haram ibn Milhan, he's just a messenger. And even now, messengers, ambassadors, they're not to be harmed, right? And to this day, this is true. They're never to be harmed. Messengers, envoys, ambassadors, they're never to be harmed, and this is true to this day. Number two, he has protection from a senior chieftain, and it's not possible for Amir to act against the decision of the senior chieftain, and he knows it is breaking an agreement, and he doesn't have the right to break. Number three, he did it secretly, and Haram had no clue. He's standing, waiting for the audience from behind. He's waiting for an audience, and from behind, what happens? Someone comes running with a spear, and he thrusts it between his shoulder blades, and it comes out from the front, right? And as soon as Haram sees this, he instantly says, "Fuztu bi Rabbil Kaaba." Fuztu bi Rabbil Kaaba. That I won. I am a shaheed by the Lord of the Kaaba. Fuztu bi Rabbil Kaaba. Instantly these words came out from his mouth, and he sees it and he says that I won. Look at his reaction. Look at the reaction of Haram ibn Milhan. He's so excited that he's dying a shaheed. And it said someone who heard this, right? Someone who heard this, he converted to Islam. He asked the Muslims about this phrase, and he converted to Islam. That what kind of religion is this that someone is happy at dying? So he converted Islam when he heard the remark that escaped from the mouth of Haram ibn Milhan. So he said, Fuztu bi Rabbil Kaaba, that wallah, I won. I am shaheed by the Lord of the Kaaba. These were the Sahaba, these were the companions. There's no one like them. So Amir ibn Tufail, now he knows he's in trouble. So he thinks, you know what, let me get rid of all of them. So he contacted many tribes, and majority of them refused. However, 3 sub-tribes, they agreed, right? One of them was Asiya, right? The tribe of Asiya, Ra'al, and Zakwan. They agreed to join forces and attack the 70 Sahaba at Bir Ma'una. So they surrounded all 70 of them, at least 400, 500 people. And the Muslims, they tried to defend themselves. The Sahaba, they tried to defend themselves. Obviously, they didn't come there for war. They came there as preachers. And they were du'at. They killed all of them except 3. And these 3 were Ka'b ibn Zayd. They wounded him and he fell down. And the bodies, they piled up on him. They didn't even know he was alive. He eventually went back to Medina and died a shaheed in the Battle of Khandaq. Remember this name. We will come back to this story when we discuss the Battle of Khandaq, the Battle of the Ditch. Number 2 was Amr ibn Umayyah. Number 3 was Mundhir ibn Muhammad. So they killed all of the Qurra, all 70 except these three. So Umar and Mundir, they had gone for an errand. Their story is they had gone for an errand. And as they came back, they saw vultures circling circling the camp where the Sahaba were, where the Ashab Sufa were. And they realized that, there's something wrong. So Mundir was an Ansari, Amr was a Muhajir. Clearly there's danger. So they discussed that should we walk in or go back to the Prophet? What should we do? So Amr says that, look, we should go back to tell the Prophet ﷺ that a disaster has struck and we need reinforcements. The Ansari said that I will not give up being in the place where my companions shall be killed, neither do I want other men telling my story. Meaning that he doesn't want to be a messenger that lives to tell their story while his companions got the actual benefit of getting shahada, of attaining martyrdom. So he in fact encouraged the Muhajir, Amr, to come with him. So they both walked into the massacre. Eventually, Mundir was in fact killed, but Amr was allowed to go back. He was allowed to go back. It said that the chieftain either wanted to let him go back or the chieftain made a promise to free a slave and he chose Amr as that slave. Now, subhanAllah, one of them wanted shahada, Mundir wanted shahada, and Allah gave it to him, right? And the other, Amr, wanted to go back and Allah gave it to him as well. So Amr on his way back met two people from the tribe of Amr ibn Tufail. Now walking back towards they were walking back towards Amr ibn Tufail from Medina. These two men, they have no idea what happened, what occurred. But Amr, he didn't know this. Apparently, the both of them had sought protection from the Prophet ﷺ, but Amr didn't know that. And from his perspective, these are the people from the tribe that killed 70 of his companions. So he tricked them, killed both of them while they slept. Then he discovered a letter of protection from the Prophet ﷺ that was in their possession. So he went back to the Prophet and broke the news of what happened. Now, Waqidi mentions Ar-Rajī and Bir Ma'una. Now, when actually back to that, sorry, I missed one part of the story. When the Prophet ﷺ found out, he gave blood money for what happened, right? Because this was done, this was a mistake and it should not have happened. So the Prophet ﷺ gave diya. Now Imam Waqidi continuing, Imam Waqidi mentioned Ar-Rajī and Bir Ma'una was told on the same day to the Prophet ﷺ. These were people from Sufa of the highest caliber, and he prayed the Prophet ﷺ prayed every single of the 5 days daily salat. He included a special qunut for all of the shuhada for one entire month. In every salah, he prayed for them and he asked Allah to take care and punish the tribes who killed these Sahaba. And in fact, it's one of those incidents that Allah revealed many verses in the Quran, but later on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogated. So these verses, they were recited at one time, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogated those verses. Now there are a number of benefits to derive from this. Number one, the religion of Islam won't ever be spread without loss and sacrifice. I mean, this is long and short of it. This is the haqiqah, this is the reality, that the religion of Islam, this is how it's going to spread. There has to be sacrifices. There is going to be loss, and that loss is going to be bitter, and it will be difficult to bear at times. If it was the case for the Prophet ﷺ, how about for us? Right? This was the case for Rasulullah ﷺ, Rahman lil Alameen, the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how about for us? We will also suffer loss and sacrifice if we want to spread and deliver the message of Islam. Number two, compare the characters of Khubayb and Amr bin Tufail, this evil chief. Khubayb was insulted that the mother of the baby suggested that he would harm the child. Whereas Amr ibn Tufail, he's so filthy and evil-minded. Not only did he massacre 70 du'at who had no intention to fight or even unsheathe their swords or even carrying weapons, but he went and killed an ambassador, a messenger. This was how evil-minded he was. Now, of the fiqh points that we derive, the concept of qunut is something that the fuqaha, they have differed over. When does one make qunut? The Shafis say that qunut is done at Salatul Fajr, And this is even according to the Hanafis in times of calamities. However, the Hanafis say that witr, this is when the qunut is performed, right? That in the witr, for those who are familiar with the Hanafi school, the qunut is done in the witr salah. And if there's calamities, then not only is it done in the witr, but it is done before going into ruku at fajr time. So in fact, qunut is only done at times of general calamity, and that is when something inflicts the ummah, and we should make dua for those who are suffering. And it's frankly a sunnah that is neglected by many. Anas bin Malik said that the Prophet ﷺ would stand up in the last rak'ah and he would do qunut. So when we stand up for ruku, this is the time for qunut. It should be done from any distress one is suffering from, a calamity, or the ummah is suffering from. It's not something that should be done on a daily basis. It's something that should be done only when there is a calamity that has struck the ummah. Number 4, the Prophet ﷺ clearly didn't possess ilmul ghaib. He didn't have knowledge of the unseen. There's no question. He knew more than any of us, and Allah taught him things that were truly ghaib, and he has seen the ghaib during Isra and Mi'raj. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ, that nothing encompasses the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except what he wants, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the Prophet certain things. So whatever Allah wants to teach, he will teach. But unconditional ghaib, no one knows. Not even Rasulullah. No one knows the ghaib other than Allah. Knowledge of the unseen is something that is known only by Allah. This is clear evidence, right? This hadith and this part of the Seerah, this is clear evidence. The Prophet himself sent these 70 Sahaba, and all of them died, all of them passed away, all of them became shaheed. The Prophet of Allah, he would not have done this if he had knowledge of the unseen. Now, number 5, the 2 people who Amr had killed, the Prophet took responsibility for their death and gave blood money to their relatives. And this shows us, and it gives us a very profound lesson: don't blame a person for the sins of his people. The issue of collective guilt, right? We should know better than anyone. These 2 men were from the tribe of Amr ibn Tufail, but they were completely innocent. They were not complicit. They were not part of this dastardly plot by Amr ibn Tufail. So the Prophet ﷺ, he accepts this, he takes responsibility, he pays the blood money, deals with the matter. You're not held accountable for the matters of the tribe or nation if you have no point. Right? You're not going to be held accountable. And number 6, as for Amr ibn Tufail, this evil man, right, who is responsible for killing 70 Sahaba, the cream of the crop, so he died a very miserable and pathetic death. He was afflicted with a type of leprosy that spread over his skin. It caused him to become delusional, and his people left him. His own family abandoned him, and he died a very lonely, pathetic death alone in the desert. And this is the type of death that is going to be reserved for someone whom the Prophet ﷺ made dua against. How is he going to be saved? This is the punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah ﷺ made dua for 1 month against the tribes of Ra'al and Zakwan, for 1 month continuous. This was because of the grief and sadness Rasulullah ﷺ had found. Rasulullah ﷺ had empathy for everyone. He had empathy for everyone. But this was just treachery, sheer treachery. And Rasulullah made dua against these people for 1 entire month. And this shows the seriousness of what they did. And this is something that as Muslims, we don't engage in plots like this. We're very forthcoming. There are examples in the Seerah where the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited treachery, he prohibited deceit, he prohibited anything that was against the spirit of Islam, against the spirit of humanity. So this concludes today's Seerah. These were the 2 major incidents that I wanted to discuss. The incidents of Bir Ma'una and Rajī. Today is our, actually, I think either 51st or 52nd Seerah class. So we're about a little bit past the halfway point. Inshallah, we can finish everything. Probably about a little bit more, 55 classes left I would say 55, 60 classes left. After that, we could probably start something else, inshallah. Okay, so any questions? Any questions? Doesn't necessarily have to be about today's Seerah. If it is, that's fine. If not, it could be about anything else. No questions? Okay. All right. So inshallah, tomorrow we'll have our questions and answers. Inshallah, same time. Maghrib is still, I think, about 8:40. So we'll still have our question and answer session at 9 o'clock. So if there are any questions, I know there are some questions that are going around, specifically some comments that Dr. Yasser Qadhi has made about the Quran. I mean, I don't really want to go into it. It's a very detailed and nuanced issue. And I mean, there are certain things that I believe they shouldn't be discussed on in an interview because of the sensitivity of the topic. And there's possibility that something can be lost in translation. So it's better to just avoid the question altogether and just ask your local scholars about the renditions, the different qira'at, and the renditions of the Quran. So I mean, these are one of the questions that somebody had asked. I'm not going to get into it. It's just it's a very nuanced question that requires an actual class and an actual book to really understand and appreciate the different qira'at and why there are different qira'at. What does that mean? Does it mean 7 different Qur'ans? Obviously, it doesn't mean that at all. But people, sometimes in interviews they ask questions like this just to show up the person or to embarrass the person or to make him slip up. Wallahu alam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. Okay, so inshallah I'll see everybody tomorrow. Text your questions or WhatsApp them to me or Facebook. Just direct message me on Facebook and I'll get to your questions tomorrow, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for stopping by. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our pious deeds and actions. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.